All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Tuesday Tao, living the wisdom of the Tao. And we're reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the ultimate key, really, for a lot of what we talk about on this channel is if we can have the ability to change our awareness, change our understanding of things, change our thoughts, in turn, we can then change the quality of our life and experience a much better quality of life in our lives, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started in on the verse of the Tao Te Ching today, our lives are made up of moments. So often, I think we do forget that our lives are made up of moments. And I think we spend too much of our moments or our lives accidentally using them up in negative ways, reminiscing about the past, or having fear or concern or, a lack of certainty about the future. And it's very common. And so I understand, and I do the same thing. And it gets me too, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's why I want to say that our lives are made up of these moments. And it's important for us to remember that so we can then begin to attempt to adjust our thoughts, our feelings, or, our direction, whatever it is that can help us to, once again, ladies and gentlemen, change our thoughts and change our life, change the moments and change the entire thing. So without any more rambling, ladies and gentlemen, today we look at the 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching, living with immunity to evil. Living with immunity to evil. Wow. That is a deep subject, sentence, topic in its own, ladies and gentlemen. And I wonder just what Wayne Dyer will get into, and we'll jump right into that after we start with Lao-tzu's 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching, a translation from 2,500 years ago. The verse begins, "Governing a large country is like frying a small fish. You spoil it with too much poking. Approach the universe with the Tao, and evil will have no power. Not that evil is not powerful, but its power will not be used to harm others. Not only will it not do harm to others, but the sage himself will also be protected. If only the ruler and his people would refrain from harming each other, all the benefits of life would accumulate in the kingdom." Boom. That is the 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching, and that is a fascinating one. And I like the the metaphors and the parallels that you can draw from him talking about maybe describing leadership on a country level or in a kingdom, and the ability to create a better quality of life for its people. But you can take these lessons and ideas here and take them from the macro to the micro, or from the really big to the, to your life, and down to a smaller version of that, of these ideas. Approach the universe with the Tao, which is what the earlier part of this book describes. So if you're uncertain what the Tao is, go back through this playlist and check it out. But simply put, the Tao is the animating, it is the way. And there is a way that is in line with universal force. Some people, God, or this energy force that is doing all things. But at the same time, it seems to be doing nothing, and yet nothing is left undone. So it's an interesting thing to think about if you haven't got there yet. But I'm sure everybody here listening to this has. So if you approach the universe with this way, it's saying, or this alignment with harmony in nature, And it says evil will have no power. And not that evil is not powerful, but its power will no longer have any grasp or will no longer have any effect. In other words, it will no longer be used to harm others by people. Not only will it not do harm to others, but the sage himself will also be protected. So maybe for you, see, this is interesting. It gets real deep, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to teach us here today on this 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching and the idea of living with an immunity to evil. And it's funny the word evil is used here because I'm not sure that's exactly what, it's kind of a broad term. Like, what is evil? Or what exactly about those aspects are we talking about? So let's see what Wayne has to say here. He begins by saying, your assignment in this verse of the Tao Te Ching is to change the way that you view the presence of, I would say, everything in your world, in your experience. But he says here, he continues to change the way you view the presence of evil in your personal world, as well as the entire planet. You can do so by acquiring an inner awareness that evil simply can't impact you if you're centered within the protective net of the Tao. Within the protective net of the Tao. So you can obviously understand we're not talking about a physical net here, ladies and gentlemen. He's using certain terms here that are very metaphorical. I've noticed him doing that in the last couple chapters. And it's like these things, having studied, earlier more, they have a deeper meaning. They have a deeper meaning. So keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're centered within this protective net or this aligning energy field of reality and nature, and you have some sort of harmony with that, and you understand the way that that can be accomplished. See, it gets is once all the bases are laid, then it gets deeper, it seems, as we go further in. But maybe that's just Wayne. Either way, let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. If you live in accordance with the Great Way, refusing to have injurious thoughts directed towards either yourself or others, then the powers of wickedness or wrongdoing, see, maybe that's the evil, more of a description of evil there, wickedness and wrongdoing, will be rendered impotent. He continues, the Tao isn't about destruction or visiting harm on anyone. Rather, it gives sustaining energy to everyone. So it'd be the opposite of destruction or visiting harm, without exception. So Wayne continues, when people violate this principle, they're only successful when others respond in kind. This is when war erupts and dissension becomes present in the family and the community. Negativity then begets more negativity, and the leader or ruler will ultimately be destroyed as the larger group falls into chaos. Wayne continues, update your viewpoint. And that's what is the key thing here, and that's what really takes work. And that's what really makes the difference in life, in all scenarios, ladies and gentlemen. Update our viewpoint. And so it's like, how do you do that? And it's one of those things that you have to begin to ask yourself. This is what comes from meditation, is you have to begin to ask yourself why it is that you have the viewpoints or the positions or the perspectives that you do have on things, and re-examine where it needs to be re-examined, ladies and gentlemen. Back to what Wayne is saying here. Update your viewpoint on the presence of malevolence in the world one that emphatically affirms, my loved ones and I cannot and will not be impacted by the presence of evil anywhere in the world. Your inner landscape will immediately begin to change as well. So when you see or hear reports of violent thinking and action, your immediate reaction must be, this is not about me. I choose not to have any thoughts of harm directed to anyone by me. I am a being of light, and I am being light and love. And therefore, the only thoughts that can emerge from me are in harmony with the great loving Tao, or way, or force. In other words, whatever comes your way because of other people won't evoke a plan of revenge and hatred. That's because you've made yourself immune to negativity by being centered in the Tao, by being centered in this way. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read that last bit there again about this lesson, because it's, you know, it's an important part there. I think that we can use really pondering. And so it's like, be conscious of all your thoughts and be able to change them. But back to what was said there, which is so powerful, the great lesson in today's teaching. In other words, whatever comes your way because of other people won't evoke a plan of revenge and hatred. It's like the only thoughts that can emerge from me, that can come from us, ladies and gentlemen, are in harmony with this great universal force. He says the great loving Tao, or in harmony, you know, with nature. These things can be taken many different ways. So if you're taking it the wrong way, then I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But you know, there's a viewpoint. Like, I love somebody who said the perspective of God, or this force, or this universal intelligence, this animating, you know, grand organized design, whatever it is for you. I always get stuck on that spot. I should just stick with one name. But it's like that this thing is impartial. It is outside of duality. Duality being good or bad, or darkness and light, or this and that. You know, it's the dichotomy. It is this oneness, and it is all oneness. And that's what the Tao is. There is no separation of what Lao-tzu calls the 10,000 things. The Tao is the oneness that connects all the things that we put labels on as being this or that. And so there is this impartiality. In other words, meaning a non-judgment from this force, or this source, or the Tao. And so that's kind of where the perspective of, okay, knowing this and trying to be in harmony with this understanding and this force, which, you know, it's partially, for me, is partially connected to the science of lucky people. Because, you know, as you know, if you've listened to me before, this thing about manifesting, or the secret, or being able to, you know, change reality, your reality, or, you know, maybe the reality for others, even to be able to influence your life, whether it be material or immaterial, in a way, that this kind of magic is very real. And it's something that I think is very necessary, at least at a most basic level, for those of us who struggle throughout life. And all of us do. You know, I'm not immune, and nobody else I've ever met is immune to the struggles of life. But I believe that through this science of lucky people, or this weird magic of creating a higher quality of life, I know it's a possibility. And I think it's something that should be thought deeper about, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry for rambling on there. I thought it might be necessary to give some kind of context to sentences such as, my thoughts can only emerge from this place of harmony within me in this great loving Tao. You know, a lot of people hear that stuff and go, oh, my fluff, get it out of here. But there's a deeper perspective to understand in the purpose that these, sentences that seem contrary to so much of our experience are being expressed. And there's a way to take it. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, whatever comes your way because of other people won't evoke some kind of plan of revenge and hatred from you, because you've made yourself immune to this negativity by being centered in this great understanding of the Tao and the oneness and all of these deep philosophical things that take deep thinking about. It takes work. Now you may think, Wayne continues, that this sounds too simplistic, which is why I just had to ramble for the last how many ever minutes, because the way he puts it is like, geez, man, it's not really, there's a lot more to it. But imagine, Wayne continues, if large numbers of people begin to think and began thinking in this way. And then imagine if rulers began to emerge from this kind of consciousness. As Lao-tzu says here in this verse of the Tao Te Ching, if only the ruler and his people would refrain from harming each other, then all the benefits of life would accumulate in the kingdom. Ultimately, our world must be and must live by this principle, or humanity will cease to exist. And it begins, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne Dyer says, with us and within us. He continues, as Tao awareness grows one person, one family, one community, and one country at a time, priorities will begin to shift for each of those areas. And our energies will go into building more environmentally sensitive vehicles and homes, rather than instruments that reflect a belief that we can do whatever we want to the planet without repercussions. We'll find ways, he says, to destroy the stockpiles of unimaginably horrendous weapons of mass destruction. Cooperation will begin to replace hatred, and thoughts of harm will no longer be so prevalent. I was kind of adding words there. That what was exactly said was, cooperation will replace hatred and thoughts of harm. And I was just thinking, he's describing a different kind of consciousness. He's describing a different kind of society here, a society that makes me think of a time long in our past, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe even the time of the Golden Age in Atlantis and the Old World, before rulers of darkness had taken over and had agendas that are not in our best interest, and humanity's best interest, and the planet. And this is just a cycle, though. And so it hasn't happened just this one time, but this is another. Whether those cycles be shorter than we ever imagined, hundreds of years, or whether those cycles be, hard to imagine in length, as far as hundreds of thousands of years. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, what he is describing is a place that I think we fell from hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. And it's a place that we are headed back to. This new enlightened society. I always think of the Golden Age and the Yuga cycles. If you've never looked that up, then Google that. I'd even have you pause the video and just Google Golden Age Yuga cycles and take a look at that, and it'll make these deeper subjects make more sense. But because when people talk about utopias, such as Wayne was describing there, where there's this new kind of consciousness, ladies and gentlemen, and this Tao awareness, or this enlightened awareness, has, gone through all of society. the personal level, the family level, the community, and the country, and the globe itself, and the shifting of priorities on all those levels, and being more environmentally sensitive and finding ways to get rid of stockpiles of weapons and a time without war, and this just this utopian of idea of cooperation replacing hatred and thoughts of harm and disagreement. Wayne continues, it will come about, as Lao-tzu states in this 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching, when rulers and people change the way they think about harming each other. It's fascinating. And so let's continue here. As you re-examine this passage of the Tao Te Ching, see how it can impact your daily life, Wayne says. When negativity feels like it's directed right at you, retreat to that place of kindness and love within and deflect that energy. Remember, it's impossible to pick a fight with someone who refuses to fight. And if you've ever seen that or tried it, so it's the weirdest thing. It's like, so your refusal to enter into battle is your most potent weapon against it. You can change an angry person's attempt to inflict harm by refusing to lower yourself to the level of their thinking. From an enraged motorist's curse to the harsh words of a disgruntled clerk or upset family member, these outbursts are easily shifted when you stay centered inwardly. So it's about the inward out. Remember, I think last week we mentioned you can't give away what you don't have. So if you don't cultivate it in here, then you won't be able to go from inward out. And the outside will kick the inward's butt. So we got to work, ladies and gentlemen, on creating this inner position, this inner ability. Like how I always say at the end, which I will at the end of this episode, is happiness is the way. It's like the thing that you got to bring to life. You don't get it from the outside, because when it's not there on the outside, then you won't have it. And that's a terrible plan. Because then a lot of times we'll go through life depending on whatever it is we need to feel emotionally from outside of ourselves, and most of the time we won't have it. And so we'll spend a lot of our lives, remember, our moments, used up in this negative quality, which I'm not saying is not also a necessary polarity of the experience of life, but I think we've had an imbalance. We've had an imbalance for the negative because it's just the way that we've been programmed to think. I mean, I've grown up in the United States here, but from what I get from people I listen to from other parts of the world, is that it's a common, this negative thinking program that we've all been given is very common. And so that's why we're going into a different philosophy, ladies and gentlemen. If you're getting value from my rambles or from what Wayne Dyer, Lao-tzu, is teaching here today, consider subscribing, because to me, this is wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. And I really do hope you're getting value. And if you already are subscribed, then be sure to smash the like and leave me a comment and let me know what you think, because it's so great to see who actually watches these videos, because I love and appreciate all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's continue. So he's talking about this utopia with understanding this philosophy and this ability, and then he gets more practical and says, how this can impact our daily life. So when negativity's being sent at us by people, we don't reciprocate it, because when you're able to do that, and he goes, when you're centered inwardly, so that's what got me off on the tangent, creating this ability through practice and effort over time from within yourself to have it, this centeredness or this love or this comfort, this, lack of judgment, or even when people are angry, being like empathetic and saying, man, like it's unfortunate that they're going through this. Even though they're directing it at me, I don't have to, I am immune through a new way, a shift, so to speak. And so Wayne continues, as he dictated on this 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching some 2,500 years ago. Lao-tzu was thinking about all of humanity. He knew that hurtful behavior could be rendered impotent if enough people were willing to live in ways that encourage cooperation and a spirit of love in a place of competition and revenge. Now he asks you to implement the wisdom of this verse by making the following changes in the way you think about evil and its potential impact on you and the world. And so number one, he says, bolster your immunity to negativity by controlling yourself in the midst of noxious thinking. Catch yourself when you have judgmental thoughts that could be considered harmful for yourself or others. For example, if you see yourself as unworthy of respect, and that's a tough thing for so many of us, ladies and gentlemen, is feeling worthy. And that's one of his principles that Wayne Dyer teaches as one of the key components to manifesting, is having and honoring your worthiness to receive what it is that you are trying to manifest for yourself. Remember, material or immaterial. But if you see yourself as unworthy of respect, that's a damaging thought directed at yourself. And so, it's funny to say, stop talking to my friend that way. Talk about yourself like that. It's kind of funny, but it tricks the mind, and your mind goes, well, okay. Or maybe it works for me, but, stop talking to yourself that way. It's a damaging thought that you are directing at yourself. So many people think of their thoughts, they just have no control over it. It's like, well, it's just me. And it's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Change it. This is what we do. You're like, okay, if you're telling me how do we do this? Change it to the following affirmation. You have to literally affirm to yourself, I deserve and anticipate receiving only divine love. I deserve and anticipate receiving only divine love. This is what I attract. You have to really convince yourself that you are extremely important, just as important as every other. Remember, there is no this or that. There is no status. It is all oneness. We are all connected to the oneness. So everybody's just as important as everybody else. Same thing goes for the opposite. Everybody is just as non-important as everybody else. So we all are even. You suck. I suck. And that means we're both great. And it's a funny way to think of it, but I love that, ladies and gentlemen. So when you're comforted with any reports of hatred and evil on our planet, suspend your fantasies of revenge when you're confronted, with any reports of hatred and evil on our planet. Suspend your fantasies of revenge towards the perpetrators and change your mental energy. So once again, making a shift. It's like whoosh, to something like I send loving, kind thoughts instead of those evil people. We got to get rid of them and take them out, especially like when you're watching the news and stuff, which hopefully nobody does. But, I send loving, kind thoughts to all and trust that this love will help them see the folly in their hatred. Be conscious of all your thoughts, changing them midstream if necessary, and become one person who brings the benefits of the Tao to our world. Remember, change begins with the individual, and I would even say within the individual. But there's a way to make this switch, ladies and gentlemen, this shift, this flip within our minds in the moment. When you receive a report of tragedy, that people have lost their lives in some kind of protest, instead of going into the negativity of it, oh, this is so bad and this should never be happening and why, you have to begin to see the positive and even the worst things, which is the ultimate challenge, I would think, of this duality experience, that there is both sides. When people are protesting, they're on the path of making great change. I mean, unnecessary things may happen upon the way, but for us to diminish and forget, you know, the 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 pro the greater viewpoint, the greater perspective, like if you zoom out and can fast forward and reverse in time and see that things and processes and change for the better in the world is something that takes time. And I think it goes along with an evolution of consciousness, which personally I think is tied to more grand cycles, maybe astrologically, so to speak. But, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue. Number two here on what Wayne Dyer says on how Lao-tzu from 2,500 years ago asks us to implement the wisdom of this verse by making the following changes in the way we think about this subject. Number two is declare yourself immune to injurious entreaties. So he says, visualize a protective field or protective shield all around you, guarding you against what's perceived as evil in the world. Your shield is permeable only to energy that harmonizes with the Tao. Love, kindness, and help can all get through, but if any harm comes to you, it will be repelled by your shield. He used this example one time when he was talking about a flight attendant. Everybody got on to, everybody got on the flight, they loaded the plane, they taxied out to the runway, and there was about a 15-minute delay, and everybody was getting, unsettled or whatever it was, disgruntled, and what's the wait for? And so Wayne is watching all this, and the pilot comes on the radio and he says, "All right, there's an issue with one of the wings. We're gonna have to taxi back, and everybody's gonna, it's gonna be a 2-hour delay or something." And so everybody's real upset, and they make everybody get off the plane again and go wait in the waiting area. And so he sees everybody saying nasty things to this lady, like it's her fault, as they get off the plane. And, long story short, he ends up talking to her. He goes, you don't have to take that from them. And she goes, what are you talking about? What? And he goes, they're not talking to you. They're talking to your package. And he goes, currently, right now, your package is your uniform. And underneath that, you have your package that isn't your uniform, because the uniform represents the company. And then so he's like, there's these layers. And he goes, and then you are inside of your package. And he goes, so there's 3 layers. What he's talking about here, you're guarded by this field around you. And whenever somebody brings this negativity towards you, anytime again, if the situation ever happens again, he goes, you just take it as they're not talking to me. They're just talking to my uniform. And I can take it. They're saying, oh, yeah, yeah. And so that's one of these things about life, is there is a perspective, or there's a new awareness that we can have that can help us experience some of the more, as simple as that was as a struggle in life, it can help us experience these things in a new way. So I'll continue with what he was saying here. I just love that story that he brings up. He always tells it much better. But love and kindness, he says, and continues, and help can all get through this field. But if any other thing that's negative, any harm comes near you, it will be repelled. It can't get through your package. This means you create a great sense of faith in the Tao, in the way, in this harmony, with this kind of inner trust. When evil rages around you, it won't be able to impact you directly. Become the sage, the leader who governs your life and the lives of those around you, and who can't be hurt. This is hard, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great lesson, though. Declare it, practice it in your every thought, and walk freely in the midst of this quote-unquote evil, this struggle, this this danger, this negativity. This isn't having a false sense of security. Important to mention. So disclaimer, we're not talking about having a false sense of security here, or, anyways, instead, it's an awareness that you and the Tao are one. It's a new awareness, ladies and gentlemen. And so finally, which is why you should get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf. I have it linked below the description to where it says more. There's a little description on the video. You can expand that and keep expanding it at the end, a little dot, dot, dot. I think it says more. They keep changing the format all the time, but expand the description below the video. You can find this book linked below to get it for yourself, to put it on your bookshelf. Mine's back there behind me. But because these are ultimate life lessons in here. And at the end of each of these chapters, if you didn't want to read all of it, which is just short, 1 or 2 pages, but if you didn't want to read all of it, you could just skip to the end of the chapter, and there's a little paragraph that's called Do the Tao Now. And so I hope you're ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday Tao. Let's do the Tao now. What that means is this is a practical way how we can put this into action in our lives. Do the Tao now. He says, the next time you think that you're or you are the target of a harmful thought from a stranger, a family member, or co-worker, make every effort to remember to respond from your inner nature, which is the Tao, which is this oneness, this non-judgment, this connectedness. It's difficult, ladies and gentlemen. The next time that you think you're a target of a harmful thought from a stranger, or a family member, or a co-worker, or whoever, make every effort. So every effort to remember to respond from our inner nature, which is the Tao, and send back a loving, kind response, and then retreat to a silent and peaceful knowing that you've begun the process of immunizing yourself from harm or negativity. By practicing with even a seemingly innocuous statement, you'll witness how effective that this strategy really is. And then approach the universe with the Tao in your heart, rather than reacting defensively. You'll have it within, ladies and gentlemen. And boom, that's a boom to wisdom. That's a boom to the wisdom of the Tao, ladies and gentlemen. And that was an ultimate teaching. That was an ultimate teaching, ladies and gentlemen. That's a good one. It's a very, very deep topic. I've lost my bookmark, ladies and gentlemen, but that's fine. Here's the Hermetica for tomorrow. But wow, that was a deep one. The 60, maybe we'll use this. The 60th verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. I did not expect it to go that way. Creating an ability to be immune or unaffected by negativity in life and in the world. That's a deep one. I always have to figure out what I'm going to title these, ladies and gentlemen, but I love and appreciate all of you for being here. Remember, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness, just what was discussed today, a greater understanding and a new way of thinking as we go throughout our lives. Seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. And remember to seek out and to discover the wisdom and the wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen, because finding and then learning and meditating on and practicing this great wisdom can really have an impact on maybe not only us, but remember what, like we talked about today, change starts within the individual. And so if there is, or if there was, or if there will be this utopian world that for some reason a lot of us can imagine and put into words and ideas, of where all of these things that are, the things that we think, but once again, it's us judging the nature of reality. But this utopian world, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we can get there. We can get there one day and be back at the golden age in new Atlantis. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, oh yeah, what's the T say? The T says, let your thoughts give hope, guidance, and upliftment to all. How fitting. Upliftment to all, ladies and gentlemen. So finally, remember that there is no way to happiness, ladies and gentlemen, happy land. There is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. And what that means is it has to be something that we've created that is located within us that we bring to life. And when we can do that, the goal or the thing in the distance that we're always telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I can get there. Never happy now, but when I finally get there, that becomes irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen, because we're already there. And then the entire journey is wonderful. At least that's the hope. All right. I love you and I thank you and appreciate all of you for being here, seeking after wisdom and seeking after the wisdom of the Tao. Appreciate you being here with me and Lao-tzu and Wayne Dyer and all the wonderful authors of the wisdom of the ages, as well as Timothy Freke and Peter Gandy and Hermes Trismegistus from the Hermetica. So tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom, we'll be back with our continued series of an introduction or an understanding of the history of the Hermetica. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this content with like-minded people, as well as check out the description below for wonderful opportunities for yourself. And we'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom.